Oh, perfect. Come on over here. Take a look at this. This is exactly what we're talking about that you'll get in these cold temperatures. So coming out here, looking at this field, checking everything out, we cannot be too worried when we see yellow in the spring. I'm Brady Stover. My passion is agriculture, agronomy, and sharing my experiences. Join me on my journey through the Pacific Northwest. Holy cow, feels amazing to be out here right now. Last week at this time, we had about 6 inches of snow in this field. Our spring has been absolutely crazy, and that is why it's key to keep an eye on your field and come look at alfalfa fields, check on your herbicide application that had already happened, see how it comes out of it, see what we do, what we need to do to move forward in this crazy spring. You know, when do we apply our fertilizer? Do we hold off? Do we apply now? Do we wait for the temperatures? You know, how are we gonna work through this situation with environment to get our 4 cuttings of alfalfa this year in the Columbia Basin? This is a very important market globally because we export so much hay out of the Columbia Basin to other countries to feed their animals. And, you know, there are other places relying on this alfalfa. So we got to do what we need to do in order to really grow the best crop and fight through these environmental stresses. So today we're out here in George, Washington. We're looking at some alfalfa. This is an established field already, meaning that they had harvested hay off of this last year. So this is coming out of winter. We're starting to get some active growth. Although these cold temperatures in the region are slowing down growth. Typically we'd have a little more spring growth going on by this point, but temperatures have been low. There's been quite a bit of moisture between rain and snow. The wind has helped dry out some of the top, but down below we still have quite a bit of moisture. And here when we take our soil temp, we're looking at 49.6. So that tells us a couple of things when looking at this alfalfa. It's a little more yellow than we want for this time, but that's due to weather constraints, nothing the grower did at this point. That's coming from, could be lack of nitrogen, lack of molybdenum. So there's some other key factors in that. With the low temperatures, these crops, these alfalfa crops that fixate nitrogen off of the nodules in the root system, they are not growing the active bacteria it takes to fix nitrogen right now. We need more foliage growth, so we need nitrogen and potassium and some phosphorus in this. It is doing okay to pick up phosphorus and potassium at this point, but we need more active growth so that we get more carbohydrates in this foliage so that it can pull the carbohydrates from the foliage, pull it down to the root system and grow those nodules that will fix nitrogen. So what this temperature tells us is that we are not at that correct temperature for that bacteria to be growing. So if you want this crop in this particular field to be growing and have active growth, you're going to need to apply a nitrogen source that is plant available. So although you could put on some UAN 32 or something, it's still going to need to go through that nitrification process, which we are also not at an ideal temperature, as we know that really doesn't start rapidly converting to plant available nitrogen by the soil bacteria until we are around that 65 degrees. So we are still quite a ways away from that, and with cold weather still in the forecast, we're quite a ways away from a lot of that nitrogen if you were applied at 32 to be plant available. So a way to get around that is to use a nitrate source which is plant available right away, such as like a calcium nitrate, just a quick maybe 10-pound shot, and that's kind of been the ideal rate that we've seen through different regions and different trials in those regions, that if you supply it with a little shot of plant available nitrogen, it'll boost that growth. You'll be able to get that carbohydrate into the foliage, which will then pull down into that root nodule, and it'll help that bacteria start to fix the nitrogen and get more active growth. And in some of those trials, we've seen quicker maturity, larger growth, and a higher yield, all because of just applying a plant available nitrogen during this cold spell at the beginning. You know, that also applies in between cuttings. When you come in and you harvest this, you know, this will be about this tall at harvest, and you'll come down, you'll cut it, and you cut it down pretty low. So you've lost all your carbohydrate storage in this foliage. And so giving another shot of that, you know, 10 pounds, 10 gallons or so per acre of nitrate nitrogen allows that process to start to get that bacteria regrowing on those roots, and it will start the physiological process of growing your crop back a lot quicker before having to wait for these environmental issues to subside.